I never thought I'd find myself in this situation. My name is Mike, and my marriage to Laura had always seemed perfect, at least on the surface. We had met in college, bonded over late-night study sessions and cheap pizza, and married soon after graduation. It felt like we were living a fairy tale, but fairy tales don't always come with happy endings. Lately, I had sensed the cracks in our relationship, but I ignored them. I guess we all do that sometimes. We cling to the good memories instead of confronting uncomfortable truths. There were little signs that something was off. Laura had grown distant, often lost in her phone, laughing at texts that left me feeling like an outsider in my own home. I shrugged it off at first. Maybe she was just busy with work or had some new friends. But when she started working late more often and canceling plans, my gut began to twist into knots. I found myself second-guessing everything, searching for answers that never seemed to come. One evening, out of the blue, I asked her if I could borrow her phone to check something. I needed to look up a recipe for dinner and my phone was dead. The moment I asked, Laura's face went pale. "It's out of battery," she said, her voice shaky, even though her phone was buzzing away on the table next to her, notifications lighting up the screen. I remember the anger bubbling inside me, mixing with confusion. Really? Because it looks like it's alive and kicking. I didn't say it, but part of me felt like I was living in a bad movie, the kind where the guy finds a clue that leads to his partner's infidelity. That moment haunted me, and I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was seriously wrong. I decided to dig deeper. I started watching her more closely, noting her habits. I noticed how she'd smile at her phone, a grin I hadn't seen in months directed at me. I felt like a detective, piecing together a puzzle that made my heart race with dread. One night while she was in the shower, I swiped her phone and took a peek. I didn't want to invade her privacy, but the nagging feeling in my chest pushed me to it. I knew I was playing with fire, but curiosity and fear consumed me. What I found crushed me. Messages exchanged with someone named Jake, filled with flirty banter and explicit plans. "Can't wait for our next rendezvous, read one." Another asked, "Did you miss me last night?" I felt the world tilt on its axis. It was like someone had pulled the rug out from under me, and I was left falling into an abyss of betrayal. My hands trembled as I dropped the phone back onto the table, the images blurring in my vision. When Laura came out, I confronted her, my heart pounding. "Who is Jake?" I demanded, trying to keep my voice steady. The look on her face was one of pure shock, but there was something else, fear. I could see it in her eyes, as if 1,000 words were swirling around her, none of them ready to escape her lips. "Mike, it's not what you think," she stammered, her usual sass replaced with flustered panic. "It's just some work stuff. We joke around." A lie wrapped in a bow of denial. My heart raced as I pressed her, needing the truth, wanting to hear the honesty that should have been a given in our marriage. Her excuses tumbled out. "I only met him once," she said, trying to downplay it, but every word felt like a dagger, twisting deeper with each syllable. "You don't understand. We were just friends. You know how I am." The anger surged up in me, bubbling over as I fought back tears. I couldn't comprehend how she thought I would believe her. Seeing her squirm, trying to justify the unjustifiable, made me feel like I was tearing apart at the seams. In that moment, the future we had built together felt like ashes in my mouth. How could she do this to us, to me? I had given her my heart and my trust, and now it was all crumbling before me, leaving me raw and exposed. I wanted to scream, to make her feel the pain she had inflicted upon me, but instead, I found myself frozen in disbelief. The emotional weight of this confrontation was suffocating. I felt a whirlwind of anger, betrayal, and profound sadness. All the moments we had shared, the laughter, the dreams, suddenly felt tainted, as if they were painted over with a layer of deceit. How was I supposed to move forward from this? Everything I thought I knew about my wife, my partner, had been shattered, and the pieces were too sharp to touch. As I wrestled with my emotions, the reality of what had just unfolded began to hit me. I had two choices before me, to fight for my marriage or to walk away. But how could I trust her after this? How could I look into her eyes without seeing Jake lurking in the shadows? It felt like my life was spiraling out of control, and the only thing I could do was take a deep breath and figure out my next move. The confrontation with Laura left me reeling, my mind racing with thoughts that felt like a never-ending loop. I spent the next few days in a fog of confusion and anger. How could she? What was I supposed to do with this information? I felt like I was living in a nightmare that I couldn't wake up from. The life we had built together felt like a lie, and I was left alone to sift through the wreckage. As I navigated the aftermath of our fight, Laura tried to act like everything was normal. She attempted to make conversation over dinner, asking me about my day as if it didn't feel like we were in the middle of an emotional storm. Each time she smiled or touched my arm, a wave of resentment washed over me. I wanted to scream, to remind her that nothing was normal anymore. Instead, I forced a smile and played along, not wanting to cause a scene in our home, which now felt more like a prison. That weekend, I decided to dig a little deeper. I needed to know more about Jake, the man who had infiltrated our lives without me even realizing it. I spent hours on my computer, searching social media and any platforms I could find. It turned out he was one of Laura's coworkers, a guy who had recently transferred from another department. They had been working closely together on some project, and it was clear from their exchanges that things had shifted from professional to personal fast. The more I learned about him, the more my blood boiled. Jake was charming, handsome, and everything I thought I was. He was the kind of guy who probably had girls swooning over him at the office. The thought of him taking my wife out, laughing over drinks while I was home, left me feeling sick to my stomach. I felt betrayed not just by Laura but by the world. How could she throw away everything we had for someone like him? I decided to confront Laura again. I needed her to understand the gravity of her betrayal, the pain it had caused me. That evening, while we sat on opposite ends of the couch, I turned to her, heart pounding. "I found out more about Jake," I said, looking her square in the eyes. She flinched, the color draining from her face. "Mike, please," she started, but I cut her off. "You think this is just a friendship? You've been lying to me, Laura. Don't you see how much you've hurt me?" My voice rose, frustration spilling over as I recalled all the intimate moments we had shared, now overshadowed by her infidelity. Her responses were a mix of defensive fury and teary-eyed regret. "I didn't mean for it to happen. I was lonely. You've been so wrapped up in work, and I just wanted someone to talk to." It spiraled out of control. It was the classic excuse, the "it just happened" line that seemed to echo in the relationship advice columns I had read. I couldn't believe she was blaming my job for her actions. It felt like a cheap shot, a way to deflect the responsibility from herself. Lonely. I shook my head, feeling the anger surge through me. "You could have talked to me. You could have brought it up instead of sneaking around like a thief in the night. If there was a problem, we could have worked through it. But you chose to betray me instead." The intensity of my emotions frightens me, but I couldn't help it. Laura's defenses crumbled and she began to cry. "I'm sorry, Mike. I never wanted to hurt you. I was confused. I regret everything." Though her tears were real, they didn't soften the blow of her betrayal. I felt like I was trapped in a cycle of pain and anger, and her apologies felt hollow. The emotional impact of her words was palpable. I wanted to comfort her, to hold her close and tell her everything would be okay. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I was standing on the edge of a cliff, and one wrong move would send me tumbling into despair. I tried to gather my thoughts, to separate my feelings from the chaos swirling around us. But it was hard. Anger and sadness blended together, creating a storm I couldn't navigate. That night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't help but reflect on the relationship we had. The laughs, the late-night talks, the dreams of a future together, they all felt tainted now. I realized that I had to make a decision, one that would affect not only me but her as well. Trust had been broken, maybe irreparably, and I had to decide if this was something we could salvage or if it was time to cut my losses. I spent hours tossing and turning, weighing the pros and cons. Could I forgive her? Would I be able to let go of the image of her with Jake? I was exhausted, both physically and emotionally. As dawn broke, I found myself staring at the ceiling, my heart heavy with the reality of what lay ahead. Could I really move forward from this? Should I even try? The thought of divorce lingered in the back of my mind, but the love I still felt for her made it hard to accept. This was a crossroads, a moment that would define the next chapter of my life. With a heavy heart, I knew I had to face Laura again. We needed to talk, really talk about what we wanted, what we needed moving forward. But the path was unclear, and the weight of the unknown pressed heavily on my chest. The next day, I knew I couldn't postpone the inevitable any longer. I needed to confront Laura about what had happened, to lay everything on the table and see if we could salvage our marriage or if it was time to part ways. I spent the morning pacing around the house, the silence amplifying the turmoil in my heart. I kept replaying our last conversation in my head, her tears mixed with the betrayal that felt like a heavy rock in my stomach. When Laura came home from work that evening, I could tell she sensed the tension in the air. I had decided to take a different approach this time. I wanted to have an open and honest conversation without shouting or blaming, something that felt impossible given the circumstances, but it was worth a shot. "Laura, can we talk?" I said, my voice shaky but determined. She nodded, sitting down at the dining table, her face a mix of apprehension and guilt. "I'm sorry about the other night," she started, but I raised my hand, stopping her. "No more apologies," I interrupted. "I need to understand why this happened. I don't want to hear excuses anymore. I want to know what you were feeling. I want to know what drove you to Jake." As I spoke, I noticed her shoulders tense up. I don't know, Mike. It was just a phase. I thought we were drifting apart and Jake was there. He made me feel wanted. I won't justify it, but that's the truth." The honesty in her words stung like a slap. "Wanted? You didn't think I wanted you too? I've been working hard for us. I thought you understood that." My voice rose again, but I fought to keep my emotions in check. "You could have come to me. You could have told me you needed more attention or connection. But instead, you chose to betray me." I know. But in the moment, it felt good to be wanted, to feel alive again. I didn't think it would go this far. The frustration in her tone mirrored my own, building a wall of anger between us that felt insurmountable. As I listened, I felt a mix of compassion and rage. I could see that there was a part of her that was genuinely remorseful, but it didn't detract from the fact that she had chosen to cross a line that should have never been crossed. It made me question everything I thought I knew about our relationship. What did it mean to feel wanted? Did I fail her somehow? "I just don't understand," I said, my voice quieter now, almost defeated. "We built a life together, Laura. Was it all just a facade for you? Did you ever love me?" Her eyes filled with tears again, and she quickly wiped them away. "Of course I loved you. I still do. I made a horrible mistake, and I am so sorry. I don't want to lose you. Can't we try to work through this?" I looked at her, seeing the desperation in her eyes, but I felt my heart harden. "How do I know you won't do this again? How do I trust you?" The silence between us grew heavy, filled with unspoken words and broken trust. I felt like I was teetering on the edge of a cliff, the ground crumbling beneath my feet. As much as I wanted to believe her, the fear of being blindsided again loomed over me like a dark cloud. "Trust takes time, Mike. I know it will be hard, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to earn it back. I just want to make this work," she pleaded, reaching out to hold my hand. I recoiled, the touch feeling foreign, tainted. "I don't know if I can. I need time to think," I replied, pulling away. The air was thick with tension, and it felt like we were miles apart despite being only a few feet away from each other. As the evening wore on, we both sat in a heavy silence, the weight of our conversation pressing down on us. I could see the exhaustion etched on her face, mirroring my own. Feelings of defeat. We were two people caught in a storm we never saw coming, and I was left questioning everything we had built. Days turned into weeks, and I tried to process my feelings while navigating the awkwardness of our shared home. I felt like a ghost in my own life. I continued to go to work, but I was distracted, my mind racing with thoughts of our marriage and whether I could truly forgive Laura. I spent a lot of time talking to friends, seeking advice and trying to figure out my options. Some suggested giving her another chance, while others advised that I should walk away. After all, once trust is broken, it's hard to build it back up. I found myself analyzing every moment with Laura, the laughter we had shared, the dreams we had for the future, and the love that once felt so strong. But those memories had become tainted, overshadowed by the betrayal. I began to notice how she would glance at her phone in distress, her guilty conscience hanging in the air like a heavy fog. It was difficult to move past it. I often found myself staring at her, searching for the woman I had married, only to be reminded of the deception that lay just beneath the surface. I needed a plan. If becoming estranged seemed like a possibility, I needed to approach it wisely. The thought of divorce was terrifying, but the thought of staying in a marriage built on deception felt equally daunting. As I laid in bed each night, the weight of uncertainty pushed down on me. It was time to make a decision. I had to be brave enough to take the next step, whatever it might entail. I knew I had to talk to Laura again and lay out my thoughts clearly. No more circling around the issue. It was time to face the truth, the hard truth about whether we could recover from this, or if it was time to accept that our fairy tale had turned into a horror story. After countless sleepless nights filled with anxiety and uncertainty, I finally mustered the courage to sit down with Laura one last time. I could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on me, the gravity of the decision I was about to make hanging in the air like an ominous cloud. I couldn't keep shuffling between hope and despair. I needed clarity. "Laura, can we talk?" I said as we sat across from each other at the dining table, the same spot where we had once shared laughter and dreams. It felt surreal to be back in the same place, but the atmosphere was heavy with unresolved tension. She nodded silently, her eyes wide with anticipation. "I've been thinking a lot about everything that's happened. About us." I began, my voice steady but laced with emotion. "And I need to be honest about where I stand." I took a deep breath, gathering my thoughts. "I don't know if I can forgive you for what you did. The trust has been shattered, and it's going to take more than apologies to rebuild it." Her expression shifted from apprehension to sorrow, and I could see the tears welling in her eyes. "I understand, Mike. I know I hurt you deeply, and I wish I could take it back. But I love you, and I want to do whatever it takes to fix this. Please give me a chance." I struggled to find the right words, feeling a mix of anger and compassion wash over me. "It's not just about your love for me anymore. It's about the choices you made. You let someone else into our life, into our marriage. How do I know you won't do it again?" The vulnerability in my voice made me feel exposed, but I pressed on. "I need to know if we can rebuild this or if we're just prolonging the inevitable." Laura's shoulders slumped as she took in my words. "I don't want to lose you. I'll do anything, counseling, whatever it takes. I want to work through this together. I'm ready to be open and honest with you about everything." Her sincerity tugged at my heartstrings, but I couldn't shake the nagging doubts in the back of my mind. "You say that now, but what happens when the next temptation arises? How can I trust you to be faithful?" I could feel the knot in my stomach tightening as I spoke. "I'll prove it to you. I'll cut off all contact with Jake. I'll do everything I can to show you that I'm committed to making this work," she pleaded, her voice rising in desperation. I stared at her, trying to decipher whether this was genuine remorse or just another round of empty promises. "It's going to take time, Laura. Trust isn't rebuilt overnight. I need to see real change, not just words. Show me you're serious about this." "I will. Just please give us a chance." There was a fire in her eyes, a determination I hadn't seen since the affair came to light. It made me wonder if she truly understood what was at stake, if she was willing to fight for our marriage as fiercely as she had fought for her fling. As we sat in silence, a part of me wanted to embrace her, to wrap my arms around her and reassure her that everything would be okay. Yet another part of me was hesitant, still grappling with the betrayal. The conflict inside me felt insurmountable. "I'll consider it," I finally said, my voice steady but distant. "But I need to see a real commitment from you, not just in words but in actions. If we're going to move forward, it has to be with complete honesty." She nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I promise, Mike, I'll show you. I love you and I don't want to lose you." As we both wiped our eyes, a sense of resolution settled between us. It wouldn't be easy, but I was willing to give it a shot, tentatively, cautiously. We agreed to go to marriage counseling together, and for the first time in weeks, there was a glimmer of hope that maybe things could get better. Over the next few days, I noticed small changes in Laura. She was more attentive, more communicative. She took responsibility for her actions and seemed genuinely invested in the process of healing. Yet, the doubts still lurked in the shadows of my mind. I often found myself second-guessing her every move, wondering if she was really putting in the effort or if it was just a temporary facade. As we attended our first counseling session together, the therapist guided us through the conversation, challenging us to dig deep into our emotions. I shared my feelings of betrayal and insecurity, while Laura expressed her remorse and desire to change. The session was emotionally draining, but it felt necessary. One of the key takeaways was understanding why Laura had sought comfort outside our marriage. The counselor suggested that we both needed to communicate our needs more openly. I realized that while I had been absorbed in my work, I hadn't been as present as I could have been. It was a hard pill to swallow, but I had to acknowledge my role in the disconnection we experienced. As the weeks rolled on, we continued to attend counseling and confront difficult topics. We talked about our relationship, our intimacy, and what we wanted from each other moving forward. Laura did cut off contact with Jake, as promised, and I noticed that she was making an effort to reconnect with me. However, just when it seemed like we were making progress, I received a text that shattered that illusion. I was sitting at my desk one afternoon when a notification popped up on my phone. It was a message from a number I didn't recognize. My heart raced as I opened it, only to see a single photo of Laura and Jake together, laughing, their bodies close. It felt like the ground beneath me had opened up again. The shock coursed through my veins. How could she? I had tried to give her a chance, and here was the evidence that she hadn't cut ties. I felt the anger rush back, and I knew I had to confront her again. In that moment, all the progress we had made felt meaningless. I was left standing in the ruins of our relationship, wondering if I could endure the pain one more time. I had fought hard to rebuild what we had lost, but now it felt like I was sliding back down that slippery slope into despair. With the evidence in hand, I knew it was time to confront Laura once and for all. I wasn't going to let this slide again. I needed to know the truth, and I would demand answers. The cycle of betrayal had to end, and it was time for me to stand my ground. I felt an unfamiliar strength welling up inside me as I resolved to take control of my life, regardless of the outcome. The moment I received that text, everything felt like it was unraveling again. I was furious, my heart pounding as I stared at the photo of Laura and Jake, their smiles frozen in time. It felt like a punch to the gut, and I could hardly breathe. I had given her a chance, and she had betrayed my trust once more. The anger that surged through me was visceral. I was done being the victim in this story. I took a moment to collect myself, breathing deeply to suppress the whirlwind of emotions raging inside. I didn't want to confront her while I was still boiling with rage, but I couldn't let this go. I grabbed my phone and shot her a quick message. "We need to talk. Now." I hit send, my finger hovering over the screen as I felt a mix of anticipation and dread about what was coming next. Laura's response came quickly, filled with confusion and concern. "What's wrong? I'm at the grocery store." I paced around my living room, feeling the weight of the moment pressing down on me. "Just come home. We need to have an honest conversation." The tension in my chest only tightened as I waited for her to arrive. Would she try to spin it again? Would she lie her way out of this one? I felt a storm brewing inside me, one that I was determined to unleash when the moment came. When Laura finally walked through the door, her expression was a mix of apprehension and concern, but the moment she saw my face, it shifted to alarm. "Mike, what's going on?" she asked, her voice laced with fear. "Sit down," I commanded, my tone leaving no room for argument. She hesitated for a moment but complied, her eyes darting around the room as if searching for the right words. "I saw the text," I said bluntly, my voice steady despite the whirlwind inside me. "The picture of you with Jake. How could you do this again?" Her face drained of color, and I could see the panic set in. "Mike, I can explain. I swear it's not what it looks like." "Not what it looks like," I interrupted, the anger bubbling over. "I see exactly what it is. You promised me, you said you were committed to working on our marriage, and here you are still involved with him. Please just let me explain," she pleaded, her voice rising. "That was a mistake. I thought I was over it, but when I saw him, I felt weak. I didn't want to hurt you again. I didn't know how to handle it. I never meant for it to happen." I felt like I was drowning in disbelief. "You didn't know how to handle it. You think that's an excuse. You've been lying to me this entire time. You told me you cut him off. How can I believe anything you say after this?" Tears streamed down her face as she tried to reach for my hand, but I pulled away, not wanting any comfort from someone who had hurt me so deeply. "This is the second time, Laura. Do you realize the gravity of what you've done? I've tried to give us a chance, but you clearly don't want this as much as I do. If you did, you wouldn't be playing with fire again. I love you. I want to fix this. I need help. I didn't want to hurt you again." She was crying hard now, her body shaking with emotion, but all I felt was a hollow ache inside me. I didn't want to be her emotional crutch anymore. "Do you think love is enough?" I said, my voice cold and detached. "Because it's not. I need trust, honesty, and respect in relationship. Right now, all I see is betrayal. I know I messed up. I really thought I could manage it. I didn't think seeing him again would lead to anything, but it did. I'm so sorry." The desperation in her voice clashed with the betrayal I felt, creating an unbearable tension that filled the room. I shook my head, feeling the weight of my decision solidifying. "I can't do this anymore, Laura. This back and forth, this cycle of lies and betrayal, it's killing me. I need to put my heart first for once. I cannot live in a relationship where I feel like I'm walking on eggshells." "What are you saying?" Her voice was small, trembling. "Are you saying you want a divorce?" I paused, the decision hanging in the air like a heavy weight. "I think I have to. I need to prioritize my well-being. I can't keep trying to fix something that feels irreparably broken. I deserve better than this." The silence that followed was deafening, filled only by the sound of her sobs. I felt a strange mix of relief and sorrow wash over me. I never wanted it to come to this. But the pain she had inflicted was too deep, too raw. As the reality settled in, I felt a pang of sadness for the life we once had. I realized I had to stand firm in my decision. I had to prioritize my own healing. I could see Laura's world shattering around her, and although it was heartbreaking, I also understood that I couldn't carry the burden of her mistakes any longer. "Mike, please," she begged, her voice cracking. "I can change. I'll get therapy. I'll do whatever it takes. Just give me another chance." I looked at her, my heart aching at her despair. "I've tried to give you chances, Laura, but trust is not something you can demand. It has to be earned, and you've shown me that you're not committed to this relationship the way I am. I need to take care of myself now." With that, I stood up, feeling a mix of strength and sadness wash over me. "I'm sorry, but I can't do this anymore." I turned and walked toward our bedroom, the weight of my decision settling in my gut. The sound of her sobs echoed in the hallway, and I felt my heart break a little more with each step. I had made the decision to end it, but it didn't make the situation any easier. I felt a profound sense of loss, but I also felt a flicker of hope for what lay ahead, a future where I could rediscover my worth and find happiness again, free from the chains of betrayal. With each passing moment, I knew I had made the right choice. I was done being a pawn in someone else's game. I was ready to take my life back, no matter how difficult the road ahead would be. I was reclaiming my power, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt a sense of liberation. I wouldn't let this define me. I would rise from the ashes, stronger than before. The aftermath of my decision to end things with Laura was a whirlwind of emotions. The days following our confrontation were filled with a haze of sadness, anger, and a strange sense of freedom. I had expected it to be harder, to feel regret or a longing for the life we had shared, but instead, I felt an unexpected lightness. It was as if I had shed a weight I didn't even know I was carrying. The first few days were rough. Laura moved out temporarily, staying with her sister while we sorted out the logistics of separation. I spent my evenings pacing the empty rooms of our home, replaying memories in my mind. It was easy to get swept up in nostalgia, reminiscing about the early days of our relationship, the laughter, the late-night talks, and the plans for a future we never got to share. But with each memory came the painful reminder of her betrayal, the reality that those moments were now tainted by deception. I threw myself into work, using the distraction as a way to cope. I found myself reconnecting with friends I had neglected over the years, opening up about my situation, and receiving an outpouring of support. It was refreshing to realize that I wasn't alone in this journey. I learned that others had faced similar struggles in their relationships, and it was comforting to listen to their stories and know that healing was possible. As the weeks turned into months, I began to focus on my own growth. I started to explore new hobbies, things I had never taken the time to enjoy while I was married. I took up running, finding solace in the rhythm of my feet hitting the pavement, the rush of endorphins clearing my mind. I also started reading self-help books, diving into topics on healing and self-discovery. I craved knowledge about how to rebuild my life, how to ensure that I emerged from this experience stronger than I had been before. Eventually, I found a therapist who helped me process my feelings and navigate the complexities of what had happened. Through our sessions, I learned to confront the anger I felt towards Laura, but I also discovered the importance of forgiveness, both for her and for myself. It wasn't about absolving her of her mistakes. It was about releasing the grip that anger had on me, allowing me to move forward without being weighed down by resentment. One pivotal moment came during a session when my therapist asked me what I wanted in a future relationship. I realized I craved honesty, trust, and a deep emotional connection. I wanted to be with someone who valued open communication and shared similar values. I also recognized that I needed to love myself first before I could fully commit to another person. This realization was empowering. It shifted my perspective from one of loss to one of possibility. As time passed, I found myself gradually moving on. I began dating again, cautiously and with an open heart. It was a slow process, but I started to enjoy the thrill of getting to know new people. Each date was a reminder that there were still genuine, kind-hearted individuals out there who deserved a chance, individuals who could offer the love and respect I had longed for. When I eventually met Sarah, things felt different. She was everything I had hoped for, supportive, understanding, and genuinely interested in building a connection based on trust. I approached our relationship with caution, mindful of the lessons I had learned from my past. I communicated openly about my experiences, sharing my journey of healing and growth. To my surprise, she appreciated my openness and reciprocated with honesty of her own. As our relationship blossomed, I found myself reflecting on my past with Laura. I didn't harbor bitterness toward her anymore. Instead, I felt a sense of compassion for the person she had once been and the struggles that had led us to that painful moment. I realized that while our marriage had ended, it had also paved the way for my own personal evolution. I had learned about resilience, the importance of self-worth, and the value of surrounding myself with genuine support. Months later, as I sat in a cozy cafe with Sarah, sipping on coffee and laughing about our shared experiences, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. I had emerged from the wreckage of my previous relationship, not unscathed but certainly stronger. I had learned to prioritize my happiness and to embrace the possibilities that life had to offer. Looking back, I knew that the pain of betrayal would always be a part of my story, but it no longer defined me. I had taken control of my narrative, transforming a painful chapter into a powerful lesson in self-discovery and resilience. If there's one thing I could share with others facing similar experiences, it would be this. Trust your instincts, prioritize your well-being, and never settle for less than you deserve. Healing takes time, but on the other side of the pain, there's a world filled with hope and endless possibilities waiting to be discovered.